So everybody, here we are, our first gathering. So children and parents, we're all going on a journey together, right? And it's a really important journey because it's the most important journey we can make to be who we really are. And children, Imam Al-Ghazali, I started reading him when I was 22 and he like saved my life. I was just out of college and I studied world religions and I majored in Hinduism. Islam wasn't even taught in the 60s. People didn't know anything about it. I thought it was something like camels and harems in Baghdad. I didn't know what it was. And so then I got out, and finally at a certain point in my life, I was in the New York Public Library, and I happened to read an autobiography of Imam Al-Ghazali, his own autobiography. And as I was reading it, I thought, I don't even believe this. This is so true what he's saying. And children, what he was saying, he said, he was talking to himself. He said, I'm in trouble. I find that I'm on a crumbling bank. If you were standing on a bank of earth and all the pebbles were falling and it was slipping away from you and you were about to slip and fall, wouldn't that be scary, kids? If you were on a crumbling bank, you're standing on the edge and the dirt is all falling. He said, and he spoke to himself and he said, oh, I'm on a crumbling bank. He said to himself, up, up and away. If not now, when? And I read that and I thought, oh, this is really important. I'll tell you what he was talking about. We're going to talk about this today. I'll try to put up I'll just talk. I want to do the heart. So first, Imam Al-Ghazali. Have you all read any of the Book of Knowledge yet? Okay, we're going to just get there. Luckily, I have my stuff.
Left and right.
Okay, all right. So let me go back to left is there. All right. So Imam Al-Ghazali, children, I want you to answer this question. The first thing he says in these 40 books, he wrote 40 books. And the first book is the Book of Knowledge, the one you're studying now. And it's even considered that the Book of Knowledge, we sometimes hear that the Fatiha, the prayer you all say, contains the whole Quran in essence. But the Book of Knowledge is considered to be a summation of the 40 books that come. So it's very important and very, very deep. And Hamza Yusuf, a friend of mine, said, in a way, the Ihya al-Ulumuddin, these 40 books, are the Quran in a usable order. He starts with very simple ideas, and then he builds up one by one. And each one, it's like you have a big base, and then you go to the next base, and you keep going up. And he uses hadith and Quranic passages at each level to all together with the ideas that he's teaching you. So the first thing he asks all of you is, did you know, children, that there are two kinds of learning? I mean, you've all been talking about what you're learning at school. You're doing maths and sciences, and you're doing art and basketball. And your parents probably teach you things like, eat more vegetables and fruit, and, don't eat so much candy. This is one kind of learning. But did you know that there's a real special learning, the real learning? And what do you suppose that learning is about? Now, let me see if I can get this right here. Yeah, there are two kinds of learning. The real learning, the special learning, children and parents and me, is how to polish your heart. And you think, well, what could that be? Polish your heart. Well, you see on this picture here in the workbook, you have two hearts. The one on the left is the one that's your physical heart, and that is pumping the blood, and it goes through your whole body and keeps you alive. But then you have your spiritual heart. When I'm talking to you, I'm not talking to a pumping heart or to an ear or a cheek. I'm actually talking to you. I'm speaking to your real heart. And do you know how important the heart is? In everything, in every subject, there's a high point. Let's say, of all the planets, what is the highest planet of all? It would be the sun, wouldn't it? Of all the land features, what would be the highest point? A hill or a mountain? A mountain. Of all the waters, what would be the highest? A river, a pond, or the ocean? Would be the ocean. Of all the chairs, what would be the highest? The throne of all the, let's say, the insects. It might be the bee, right? Of the flowers, maybe it's the rose or the sunflower. But in the human body, can anyone tell me what would be the highest of all the organs in the human body? Somebody answer. Who would like to answer?
The heart.
Yes, the heart. And we're talking about the spiritual heart. The physical heart is the central organ because you couldn't live without it. It's like, could we live without the sun? No, it's the center and it keeps all life going. So the physical heart is keeping your body going, but the spiritual heart relates to everything real about you and who you really are. Your spiritual, your golden heart is who you really are. It's completely good and completely marvelous who you really are. And when the prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, received revelation, it came to his heart. So the heart is very, very important. So you might say, oh, so we have two hearts. But if the most important thing you do, the most important special learning is how to polish your heart, how do you suppose your heart gets dirty? Can anyone think of some ways your spiritual heart could get dirty?
Could I answer?
Yes, I'd love that.
So the ways that your spiritual heart can get worse is when somebody isn't praying or reading the Quran and is doing bad deeds.
Yes, that's really true. Anybody else? Can anyone think of other ways, things you need to polish your heart with? Well,
Having good behavior.
good behavior. Well, you're going to be delighted to know that what Imam Al-Ghazali is teaching you, he's going to teach you all the ways to polish your heart so that you're in control of your own life. It's your heart. And what I want you all to do is to draw your own heart on a piece of paper. And after we finish class, you'll put 3 dots, 3 things that you would like to polish away. But let's go ahead from here. All right. So now, if you feed, here you see a mouth and a fork, and then you see a spiritual heart. What do you feed your body to make it strong and healthy? What kinds of foods do you feed it, everybody? Yes, yes, Alfie.
Like like vegetables and
Yeah,
meats.
meats, yeah, vegetables, meats, fruits. Those are good things. Those are good ways to feed your body. But what could you do that would strengthen and make your spiritual heart more shining and more golden? Can anyone come up with an idea for that?
Me. Um, vegetables.
Yeah, that's for your body, but for your spiritual heart, what would you do for that to make it shine and healthy?
I don't know. Good deeds.
Good deeds. Good deeds. Exactly true. Exactly true. All right. And then the question is, why would you even bother to keep your spirit, your golden heart clean, right? Because they're two worlds, right? Do you think you can go into the next world? You know, when people die, they don't die, they just go to the next world. But in this life, we have lots of problems that come our way. Maybe you get disappointed, maybe you don't get to go to a movie, maybe things aren't working out, so you get disappointed. And there are many things that you want to, to be in your life, but you want to get ready to go to the next world too, and you want a pure golden shining heart. And so so this is part of what we're doing. We're polishing our heart so that when the time comes for us to go to the next world, we'll be completely golden. You can't think of a dirty heart going back to God, could you? And by the way you all act, do you know that when people do things, other people copy them, right? Sometimes you see somebody bouncing a ball that way, and then you do it that way. Or you see someone picking up some trash, and you think, oh, I'll pick up trash too when I see it. And that way you're being a teacher. Did you know, children, you are all teachers. Your mother and father are teachers. Everybody's a teacher because people copy. People copy each other. So in this, there's something in the Quran. See the picture here of the mother and the little girl? And there's some ants and a whale. Did you know that the Quran says that even the ants and the whales, they pray for people who teach what is good. And you know how you teach? By the way you are, you know, you're people follow each other's examples. So also even the angels will brush your hair, brush your head. Now it's interesting that whales are like the biggest mammals imaginable and ants are really tiny, that all of these beings in their worlds are praying for people who are good teachers. So wouldn't you like the whales and ants to pray for you? Here's a children's drawing. Here's some good art. Some children did some good whales and little ants, and they're praying for their teacher, and here's some more. Look at these little ants. These are drawings by children. Aren't they wonderful? Just showing that, you know, it's very important to have a golden heart, because that's how you best teach other people. So we're going to learn how to polish your heart and all the things that go into that. Now, Al-Ghazali also in his book of knowledge, he asks a question. All right, I'm going to ask all of you. People have three basic needs, things they really need in this world. What is the first thing you need more than anything else? Can anyone think? Yes, Asper Alpern.
Like a deen, like a religion.
Well, that's true, but we're talking about physically. What does your body need?
Oh.
The three things your body.
Could I say all three or only one?
Well,
should I say one?
Yes, you say one thing.
Okay, water.
Water, true. Okay, and Halak, what would you say?
Would it be like physical clothing?
Yes, first it's food, water, and second we need clothing. And what's the last thing? Okay, say we have enough food and we're dressed. What do we need lastly? A basic need. Does anyone know? A shelter. We need a home, something to protect us from the rain and the snow and the cold and the heat. So we need food, and we need something covering us, our clothing, and we need a shelter. But Imam Al-Ghazali asked a question. He said, people spend so much time over satisfying these needs. They don't just have nourishing food. They're spending all this time getting food from all over the world and millions of hours dealing with food. And look at clothing. Do you all have more than you need? Do you have lots of extra clothes? I do. I have closets of clothes that I can't seem to give away that I like. And so we end up having lots of toys and clothes and things we need. And then look at people's houses. They keep decorating them, getting a new and redecorating and changing the curtains. And Ghazali says you have to be very careful with your three needs. You can be so busy with them, so busy with food and clothing and toys in your home that you forget even why you were born. You forget that you have to polish your heart. Do any of you experience that you have too many of something? Do any of you have too many clothes or too many toys? Yeah, we do. And they take up a lot of our time too. So also there's a story from the Cherokee Indians. You know, in Islam, we are told seek knowledge even from China. So this is a story from the American Indians, the Cherokee Indians. And they say, just imagine this. This is just an idea. You pretend that in your mind, you have a good wolf and a naughty wolf. And the good wolf gives you good ideas, like help your mother, get out and do some yard work, help your father, be kind to this person. And then you have the naughty wolf saying, oh, don't bother, just watch TV, just hang out, just, you know, just do your own thing. And so the Cherokee Indians in the story, they said, which wolf are you going to listen to, the good one or the naughty one, right? And what happens is if you don't listen to the naughty one, he starves to death. But if you do all the naughty things that the ideas come into your mind, you know what happens? You're strengthening the naughty wolf. The more you listen to him, the stronger he gets. And then the good wolf will just wither away. So sometimes you can pretend when you do your Ghazali workbooks for the Book of Knowledge, you'll come to this and you'll have a good exercise to do with the two wolves. And then also Imam Al-Ghazali says, and with the book of knowledge, we're dealing with the principles and the foundations of your special learning. And he says that, have you ever thought that things that are invisible mean more to you than things that are visible, right? Maybe something visible is, here it says, the trust a falcon has for its master is invisible. We can see the body of this falcon with our eyes, but we understand the invisible trust of the bird and the warmth and kindness of its master with our spiritual hearts. What we love most is invisible. We love kindness, we love friendship. We think we really love matter things, but those all go away. But what we really love are the things that you can't see, right? And these are the qualities that you're going to be working on for your golden heart. Now here's friendship. Here are two girls that we say, but you can see what happens when you are nice to someone and they become happy. You can see a smile on someone's face and know that you make them happy. But happiness is invisible. Isn't it interesting that the things that mean the most to us are invisible? Would anyone like to talk about that? Yes. What would you like to say? Tell something invisible that makes you very happy, something you can't see. Yes.
Oh, okay. Like 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 Allah is invisible and you can't see him.
Perfect. Yeah. Anybody else can think of something invisible that they love?
Air.
No. Air. Beautiful.
Angels.
Angels. Oh, I love that. Angels. That's wonderful. Any other idea? Beautiful. Do the mothers and fathers have anything they'd like to add? What are some of the invisible things the parents love?
I will say love.
Love.
Love is invisible, but that fills our heart and
Yeah.
that designs our life,
Mhm.
our activities, and everything.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's really interesting. Yeah. That's beautiful. So let's see what else we have here. Okay, now, young people, I'm going to tell you a story. Imam Al-Ghazali is teaching us many, many things. First, that the most important thing is our spiritual heart. Secondly, that things will happen in our life that are opportunities to keep our spiritual heart pure and full of light and polished, and that we don't have to worry, because when a grandmother dies or our pet dies, they just go to the next world. And we're given opportunities in this life to learn to trust God and to love him and to polish our heart. So Imam Al-Ghazali tells a story about the ant and a pen. Do you see the ant there on the piece of paper? You see it? And there's a pen writing. So let's pretend you're the ant and the writing is what's going on in your life. You think, let's just say something that you can see a cause for. The ant thinks that the pen is writing those letters, but above the pen is a hand, and above the hand is an arm, and above the arm is a man. But the little ant, can't see what's really causing the things to happen in his life. You think, oh, because somebody knocks on the door and they deliver the post, that's all that's happening, but it's a much bigger system. So I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you a story. I made this easier because Ghazali's image of the ant and the pen is really hard. So is everybody ready for a story? All right, here we go. Once upon a time, there was an ant family, and the parents told the baby ants, guess what? Tomorrow we're going to the zoo. And the children were delighted. Tomorrow we're going to the zoo. And then the parents said, oh, we're really sorry. The relatives are coming. We're not going. And what do you think the children did? Oh, they all did bad faces, moods, and they all said, but you said we were going. I mean, we've all said that, right? But you said we were going. You promised. We looked forward to it. So there's big disappointment. And the baby ants, through the whole day during the relatives' visit, they were kind of low and not cheerful, very naughty of them. And then at the end of the day, they heard on ant radio that a lion had gotten out, and the lion got out, and there was terrible situation. Ants were trampled, ants running everywhere. And so the father and mother ant said to their children, you see, Allah loved us so much, he sent us the relatives so that we didn't endanger ourselves by going to the zoo that day. You know, sometimes there's a traffic accident, or you can't go somewhere, and then you hear that there was an accident which happened, and you think, Yani, mashallah, alhamdulillah, Allah protected us. Something came up and we didn't go. And my husband has a boat, and we live on the Ohio River. Kentucky is like this, and the whole northern border is the Ohio River, and above us is Indiana and Illinois, Chicago, something, those states. And one day, my grandchildren, Bilal and Medina, they go to school down the edge of the river, and they'd never been out in the river. They just moved here from England. So my husband said, well, we'll take them out on the boat. So it was a lot. We got the boat out. It had to be brought out of the garage, put on a special thing to drive. We had to get little life preservers for everybody. And the day came, very excited. We're going to go in the river and have a picnic. And then my grandson got ill, and we couldn't go. Imagine the disappointment, right? So the next day I went over to visit him. He was in bed. And I said, Bilal, you won't believe this, but yesterday, when we would have been out on the river, right? There was a big storm upriver in Cincinnati, and logs and trees and all kinds of horrible stuff. And the water was turbulent and full of mud. Thank goodness that Allah made you ill, so we didn't go out and endanger our lives on the river. So I told him
That happened
that
to
really
my
happened.
grandfather
That
once.
really happened. Yeah, that really happened. And so on Sundays, my grandchildren get together with six mothers and many grandchildren, and each week they take a different chapter of this book, and they work together, and they do activities and, snacks and all this. And so the chapter about the ants came up, and Bilal raised his hand, and he told everyone, he said, my friends here, this is what happened. It was proved to me. I saw exactly what happened. And so then the mother said, all right, children, pretend you're ants and crawl over to that window. And everybody crawled over as ants. And she said, look out the window. Do you see that tall tree? They said, yes. She said, what's on top of the tree? They said, we can't see. Why not? We're too small. So when things happen in your life, children, when a disappointment comes, instead of thinking, oh no, we look forward to it, we're disappointed, think, wonder what Allah is doing. What's going on up where you can't see it? What's moving things? Allah is taking care of you. So sometimes he sends things that maybe you wished hadn't happened, but these are all part of a great plan, putting us all together. I mean, who knows? Maybe the reason that we're having this class together is that there's going to be one idea I learned from one of you, and it helps me, and I go out and I'm improved by that. Or maybe down the line, one of you told a story, and I think about that story, and it's useful. So we're all put together. This is not just an accident. Do you think everything in life is just accidents? Either everything has meaning or nothing has meaning. It's not like a little meaning sprinkled here and there. It's all meaningful, right? So the fact we're together, and Khaldun has gone to so much trouble to put this together, and they've been so kind, and my son Mustafa put all these lights and everything up. It's that we've persisted in this. There's something going on here. There's something in this, our getting together, that we can't see. It's invisible. But you may realize it later. So just be open-hearted and say, wonder where we're going with all of this. Something is in green. Something said something. It said, you are screen sharing. Oh, fine. So here's some baby ants. All right. Would let me see what we're going to go to next. All right, I'll tell you one more story that illustrates the principle that Imam Al-Ghazali about the story of the ants. You see this country right here? This is Central Asia. I went there. I've been to Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, and did I say Turkmenistan? I went to 5 stands. See this beautiful landscape here? I was out there. It was so beautiful, I started crying. And this is the Mongolian culture, and they have yurts, and it's a horse culture. They're all into horses totally. So one day, a young man, a boy, he took the family's only horse and he went out into the countryside and he lost the horse. And the people in the village ran to the old grandfather. You see the wise grandfather here. And they said, "Oh, grandfather, oh, sir, your grandson lost the only horse. Now your family is poor. We feel so sorry for you." And the grandfather said, "Maybe good, maybe bad." What happened? The villagers left. The next day, the boy went out into those mountains and he was looking for his horse. And he found a herd of horses, lots of horses all together. And he herded them back. He built a corral. He put them all in. And the villagers all ran to the grandfather and they said, "Oh, sir, you must be so happy now. You're rich. You have many horses." And the grandfather said, "Maybe good, maybe bad." And then the next day, the boy thought, "I want to train one of these horses for myself." So he goes into the corral and it scares the horses and they're very jumpy and they jump around. And then one of the horses kicks him and the boy's one leg, his right leg, is all broken and crushed and he's dragging it. And all the villagers, they run to the grandfather and say, "Oh, we are so sorry for you. Your only grandson has a horrible leg. You poor things." And the grandfather said, "Maybe good, maybe bad." And the next day, and this is where the story ends, the Chinese army come marching in, or the Russian army, and they took all the young boys away to be soldiers in the war, but they didn't take any of the boys who were disabled. So look, maybe good, maybe bad. You see, many times you think a thing is, and the Quran says, sometimes you think a thing is good for you, and then it turns out to be bad. Or sometimes you think, "Oh, this is horrible," right? Like the relatives coming, the aunt relatives coming, and it turns out to be good. So what we have to do is not get excited in a down period, but we have to trust Allah and look for what, and be present and know that there may be great good in it. Have any of you all ever experienced anything like this? Could anyone tell a story of something like this that might have happened in their life? Alhamdulillah, that's really a wonderful story. Yeah. Yeah, we have to look at all these things that happen, and see, see what's going on, what they mean, because you sometimes you don't know, because all right, I'll tell you a story. All right, everybody, it's a personal story, because we always hear, for example, if you read Rumi, he tells a story, kids. He speaks about, there were 2 men sitting in a cafe, let's say Damascus, I forget where it was, and their angel of one of them looked over the other person's shoulder and he saw the angel of death coming toward him, and he was really scared. So he said to his friend, "I'm leaving." And he went to Suleiman and said, "Get me out of here." And in 1 minute, he was transported on a magic carpet or by the jinn to Samarkand. I have the story. I mean, you Rumi people know the story right, but I'm telling you my recollection. So in 1 second, he was in another city. And in that same second, the angel of death is walking slowly up. And he said, so Sidi Khaldun, wasn't that Sayyidah Aisha sitting next to you just now? And you would say, "Yes, she was sitting right here at the table with me." And the angel of death said, "How strange to find her sitting here in Damascus. She's on my list for Samarkand tonight." In other words, you can't run away from what Allah has planned, right? So, I mean, I read that when I was young and I thought, Well, that's very nice. Our hour is chosen by God. But how do I know that's true? I don't, I, I, I haven't had it demonstrated in my life. I haven't experienced it. And then here's what happened to teach me the truth of that. Many years ago, after I came back to Kentucky, I used to go to our house in Cairo every Christmas, and all family members and friends would meet there. And so I would go out with many packages and gifts. And my husband took me out to the airport here in Louisville. And I had many, besides the bags that went, I had lots of presents in my hands, and it's too hard. And I was standing in line to get on the plane, and there was a couple in front of me from New York City, and they were just ahead of me. And the plane was going to go Louisville, Kentucky, Cincinnati, Ohio, and then to JFK in New York, and then to Cairo. So they were just ahead of me. And then the woman said to them, "Oh, I'm sorry to tell you, people going to New York, but the flight to Cincinnati is canceled." And they said, "Well, we need to get to New York tonight. Just take us some other way." And she said, "Well, there is no other way." And they were really mad. They said, "Oh, we just came down here for the day. We just came to on business. We don't even have a toothbrush." And then they said, "Look, Cincinnati, how far away is that from Louisville? Could we rent a car and drive there?" And she looked at her watch and she said, "Well, actually, you could." Then they turned to me and they said, "Look, we're New Yorkers. We don't drive, right? If we rent the car, will you drive it to Cincinnati?" And I thought, I have nothing to lose, because it's so anticlimactic to call your husband and have to go back home with all your stuff and go the next day. And this flight was going every day. So I thought, I'll do it. So they rented a car and we drove out to this place where the highway goes to Cincinnati. And I looked at that sign, and it said 90 miles to Cincinnati. And it was 2 hours before the flight took off. So I thought, I'll have to drive 90 miles an hour to get there so that we have a half an hour at the airport. And I don't drive that fast. And big, wide 4-lane highway. And the couple were in the back texting. And I just pushed on the pedal and I went up to 90, very calm. And I thought, if the police get me, well, I gave it my best shot. So I'm driving very calmly, and we pull into the airport exactly an hour and a half later. The people jump out and run, right? I didn't have time to return the car, so I gave $20 to the check guy. And then I ran in with my luggage and I went to the desk because I hadn't checked in. And they said, "We're really sorry, but you can't make this flight to New York, And I said, "But I have to." I didn't have to. So I called my husband and said, I'm not catching the flight. I'm going to sleep in Cincinnati, and I'm taking the same flight to New York and on to Egypt tomorrow. He said, "Fine." And then they said, "Miss, come. The plane to New York has been delayed, so you come get on." So they checked my luggage through. They said it'll make it all the way to Egypt. I didn't believe it, but so I then got onto the plane, and there was the couple from New York who had abandoned me, right? And they looked down and they said, "We're sorry we ran off and left you, but when we get to New York, we have a van meeting us, and it will take us around to your terminal, so you won't have to go so many terminals." So they dropped me at the terminal. The terminal was dark. And for some reason, I know where the gate is because I go every year. I started running. I was running with all those packages, running like my life was at stake, and my heart was tearing and burning. And I was running like the wind as fast as I could. You know that feeling? And I got to the where the little booth is, and I went down the ramp to the plane, and they were pulling the door to the plane shut. They'd pulled out the wheelchairs. And I said, "I'm on that flight." And they said, "No, you're not. It's too late. You can't get on." And I said, "But my luggage is on." I didn't know that, but it actually was. So they let me on. I went to Cairo. Next day, I'm sitting on the floor with my daughter. We're just sitting in her bedroom on the rug. And my husband calls. And he said he knew from my daughter Hajar's voice that it was all right. If I hadn't made that plane that day, and I'd gone, the same plane that delivered me went back to New York, And the next day when it flew out, it was the Egypt Air that crashed into the sea. So if I hadn't driven those people's car, hadn't gone 90 miles an hour, that flight hadn't been delayed to New York, they hadn't had a limo, and I hadn't run till my heart cracked, it was 1 second, I would have been dead. And there I saw it. It was too many coincidences not to just bear witness to what's going on. And you know what? That kind of stuff is going on all the time. We can't see it. It's invisible, you know? So I have to, I just thought I'd tell you that story. All right. So that's the horse the little boy lost. Isn't it beautiful? Now, you see, here's a girl drawing her golden heart, and that's something I want all of you all to do. It's your homework for next week. You'll draw a heart, and you can pin it up in your room somewhere. And then if you notice you are being angry or mean or not helping out, or you're lazy, or all of these things we're going to be learning, just put a dot. Because children, your golden heart is the best thing you've got in your life. It's who you are. And you don't want to get it dirty. You want to keep it good. And it's your life, your spiritual life. It's you take care of yourself. And you're given all these opportunities to polish your heart. Say your dad says, run out and help your mother bring in the groceries. And you think, oh, I don't want to do that. Yes. And you do it. So you've just overcome that laziness. So every moment you're being given a chance to polish your heart. All right. Now, these are some of the things that are going to attack you. All right. Do you see what we have here? There's your golden little heart. You're going along to the next world. And what do you see is trying to, right there low is backbiting. Do you know what backbiting is, everybody? What is it?
It's when you're saying something bad about someone behind
That's
their
right.
back.
That's it. Gossiping, right? People do it all the time. And then you see this other one up there, pride. Do you see that? Being proud. You know, I'm the one, I know. This is what Imam Al-Ghazali, that was the biggest dot on his heart. You know, when he said up, up and away, I'm on a crumbling bank, he noticed how proud he was because he was really brilliant. And he was teaching at this incredible university, the Nizamiya in Baghdad. And he was like the smartest person. He'd read everything. And no matter what argument, he won every discussion, every argument, every debate. And he was proud of it. And then one day he was teaching and he realized, oh my God, I'm teaching people not to be proud. I'm teaching people not to argue. And I'm doing all of this myself. I'm a hypocrite. And you know, in Islam, they say nifaq, to be a hypocrite is like one of the worst things you can do because hypocrites basically lie to themselves and to others. They pretend they're doing something and they're not really doing it. And people think they're good and they're hiding what they really do. So Imam Al-Ghazali noticed this in himself. I'm sure you'll read his life. Maybe you have already. And he was scared because he knew that if his golden heart didn't get rid of pride, he was going to crumble on the bank and he would die full of pride. And so children, it was quite a big thing he went through. He started thinking every day, I can't have this pride. I'm a total hypocrite. He thought, you know, I'm going to quit my job. And he thought, quit my job? I'm the president of something that's the equivalent of Harvard today or Oxford. And I have a family and I'm respected in my community and I'm someone and I have daughters. But his heart was killing him. He knew he had to do something. And then one day, because his intention, because he wanted to be good, he wanted his heart golden, Allah loved him so much that he took away his voice and he went in to teach school one day. Imagine, children, if you're at school and your teacher comes in and they open their mouth and nothing comes out. They can't speak. And the doctors looked at him and they said, it's not a physical illness you have, it's a spiritual illness. So Imam Al-Ghazali said to his wife and daughters, he was going on a long pilgrimage and he went all the way out to Damascus, I think, yes. And he took a job in a mosque as a janitor, sweeping. And then he'd hear people talking and discussions. He'd want to rush over and give them the right answer. But he slowly realized being humble is better, and slowly Al-Ghazali took all of the different dots on his heart and he polished them off. And in the end of his life, there's a beautiful thing Hamza Yusuf wrote in the preface for our adult book of knowledge, where a man came, from Spain or somewhere, and met Imam Al-Ghazali at the end of his life in Jerusalem. And Imam Al-Ghazali was at peace, and he was calm, and he was silent, and he was luminous, and he wasn't proud, and he was humble, and he wasn't bragging. He was just present. His heart was golden. And the man wrote, and it's a beautiful thing to read. He said, "When I sat in the presence of Ghazali, I found what I was looking for." And that, children, is what you're all looking for. And this is the project we're going to be doing together, to find a way to take the golden hearts that you have. And you're young, so if you start now, you'll be on top of it. Usually it takes old people, they start thinking about it, and then their habits are so bad it's too late to change. So pride, and see, bragging, you don't want to brag, do you? I bet you all brag sometime. We all brag. Bragging is very subtle, one-upmanship, being the one who knows, everybody does it. And then hypocrisy and arguing. So these are things we're going to discuss in great detail so you can understand them. This is the gossiping one. You see these girls gossiping. So it's already nearly 12. I've kept you too long, but I want to tell you, we're going to finish this series. I'm going to tell you a story about bragging, about gossiping. When I wrote the chapter for Ghazali's book on gossiping or backbiting in the book you all are reading, there's something the Quran says, and I thought it's so disgusting, I don't want to put it in the children's book. The Quran says that if you backbite someone, it's the same as eating their dead flesh. Can you imagine such an image? I can't think of a worse image in the Quran. I guess hell and that, right? I couldn't think of anything worse. And I thought, I can't put this in a children's book. And then I thought, well, Ghazali wrote it. It's in the Quran. Children can take it, right? So I put it in. And that afternoon, I had rewritten that chapter 22 times and thought a lot about it, because it's very tempting when people are talking about someone to put in your 2 cents. And that night, I went out for a drive, and I went to a restaurant with some of my lady friends. We were having dinner, and they were talking about, one of our lady friends wasn't there, but she has a pretty terrible father. And everyone was talking about the father. And I had a really funny, horrible story about the father, and I told it. And I got in the car to drive home, and I started feeling sick in my stomach, like, queasy. I drove home, I ran in the house, and I ran in the bathroom, and I threw up, right? I had literally eaten that person's dead flesh. You think it's a metaphor, just a nice image. Yeah, it's the same as eating the person's dead flesh. No, we're so covered with veils that when we're gossiping and backbiting, we don't even realize what we're doing. We just do it. It's become what people do. In fact, and when you finally read the book of fasting, there's a hadith, a Sahih hadith, when the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, it was Ramadan, some ladies came to him and they said, "Oh, Prophet, we're old and frail. We'd like to break our fast." And he handed them a bowl. He said, "Throw up in the bowl." And to the horror of the bystanders, they threw up pieces of flesh and blood. He said, "No, you already broke your fast. If in Ramadan you gossip, you have broken your fast." We think it's just food and, stuff like that. No. What's the good of giving up food if you're still gossiping, if you're still looking at horrible stuff, if you're listening to gossip, if your feet take you to bad places? No, what you're going to learn from Imam Al-Ghazali is the inner dimensions of everything you do. We try to follow the sunnah of the Prophet and do things the way he did. But if we're just doing the outward look of it, we have to do the inward aspect of it. When we get to prayer, prayer isn't just moving lips and postures. They're different modes of being. We'll study all of that. So with the gossiping, I discovered, oh my God, I can't do it. And you know what happened after that day? I can't do it anymore. It just stopped. And you all, we're going to take and then one day a lady called me up and she said, "Oh, I was having a ladies' party and we were eating our cookies and our tea and we were talking about people. And my little daughter, Lena, who is 8, she came and whispered, "Mommy, are you all backbiting?" And the mother said, and I said, "May I speak to Lena?" Lena got on the phone and I said, "It's Auntie Aisha, Lena. Tell me what happened." She said, "Well, you know, Auntie, until mother read me the chapter on backbiting in the Ghazali book of knowledge, I didn't really know about it. I didn't know, I never heard of it." I said, "You know, my dear, when I was a little girl, my mother used to say to me, 'Dear, if you don't have something good to say about someone, don't say anything at all.'" My mother'd say that once a week. You know what? Mother should have said it every day 10 times, because we can't do it. We cannot do this because we really are eating the dead flesh of that person. We don't want to do that. And everybody's doing it. Look at the Muslims. They're saying these people are going to hell. They're no good. That group is no good. We don't say anything. We be silent. We do not backbite ever. So if you notice yourself doing it, put a black dot on your heart. But start being aware of this from now, and soon you won't. If you make it a habit of never doing it, just you stop yourself over and over again. You keep stopping yourself. And then one day your habit is to stop yourself. And then finally you won't do it. We're trying to create good habits from the outset of your life. See, look here, look at these children. Maybe this happens at your school. Children go and talk about another child. Maybe they leave somebody out at school. If they do that, go to that child who's left out and include them. You know, if you play games, you'll we do a lot of Ghazali games besides keeping your golden heart. If you get together with your friends, do you all have, some of you have iPhones that you can make films with, videos? What you can do is you can play act something. You can get a group and then they shun this person and they all together and they leave the person out. And then and it's a horrible thing to do. And then they realize, what were we doing? We'll go and embrace. Let's say your mother and father tell 2 of you, there are 2 children in the house, and they're not sharing. All right. So what we do, and if you say, share your toys, share, the children think if mother is saying share, it must be horrible, like, so, but it isn't. So, but children haven't experienced the opposite. So what I do with my grandchildren, I say, play not sharing. And then Bilal says to Medina, "You can't hold my toy. You can't have this. You can't," and they're having fun. "You can't do this. You can't do this. You can't have this." And then I say, "Now pretend to share. Would you like to hold my this? Would you like to play with my Legos? Would you?" And suddenly they discover it felt good. It really felt good. It was easy to do. I didn't lose anything by it. The problem is if you don't experience doing the right thing, which is coming from the golden heart, the naughty stuff is coming from the lower self, the nafs. I want it, me, for me, right? But the real heart feels great when it shares, great when it help, great when it goes and reads to its grandmother. So you all, what you can do, and another fun thing, is to make little video skits. And if you go to our children's website, it's called ghazalichildren.org, you'll see a golden heart going across at the beginning. Click to things to do, and you will see some of the funniest films you've ever seen in your life, made by children who show doing the wrong thing and then doing the right thing. Some of it, there was a little girl from Pakistan, Sialkot, Pakistan, in a little beautiful silver dress, and she had a peacock, and she took her dolls and she had them go to a luncheon of other dolls, and she walked them and had them talk, and then they left and they spoke badly about the hostess, and then they go back and apologize. The things kids send in, I would love you all to make films too. It would be great. And then one more concept here about your heart. We've talked about your golden heart. By the way, if your heart is still and golden and at peace, it's filled with angels inside. Can you imagine that? There are angels there. But if you have bad thoughts, the bad thoughts are like barking dogs and they scare the angels away, right? So be careful. It said, naughty thoughts can be like scary barking dogs that frighten the angels away from the home in your heart home. So think of when you're at peace and everything is peaceful and you're not arguing with a sibling and you're not trying to beat somebody, just notice that you're filled with angels. Now, if a lion got out of a cage, right? If the lion got out and chased you and somebody saved you, would you thank that person, everybody? Would you thank the person who saved you? You would, wouldn't you? Now, if your parents or your teachers or Imam Al-Ghazali, if they're teaching you how to save your golden heart, wouldn't you thank your teachers or thank your parents? If your mother says, you should stop arguing, you shouldn't be so angry, you should be generous, you should thank her for reminding you to be who you really are. And lastly, we're going to talk about the three selves. Everybody look carefully at this, okay? You have three selves inside of you. See the low self over there? That's the lower self. That's called the nafs al-amar bisu, the soul that encourages you to do the selfish thing for yourself. It's self-centered, like the ego, right? And then you have over there the scolding self. That's called the nafs al-lawama. That says, oh no, you really shouldn't have done that. Go and say you're sorry. It's like your conscience telling you, oh, please don't do that, right? And then you have your real self who's watching. Sometimes, let's say you decide, I want to get up and pray the Fajr prayer. All right, you're lying in bed. And so you have this good idea. And then the lower self says, just stay in bed a few more minutes, right? And then the scolding self says, once you're up, you'll feel fine, right? And then your real self, you can actually watch that discussion. And more often than not, the lower self wins. It is very cunning. It whispers, right? Let's take this scene here. You're lying in bed. The low self sit. The mother has come to, does your mother come to the door and say, get up for school? Yes. My mother used to come and say, get up, get dressed, come down for breakfast. So this person, she's lying in bed and her lower self says, I will pretend to be asleep. And her scolding self says, I really should get up and make mother happy. And then the real self is watching. I'm watching the low self try to win. So you have all these aspects of you, your golden heart, where your real self is, the real you are completely good. It's always under attack from the lower self, but you be on guard and don't let it win out, right? And remember, Ghazali ends this book of knowledge, which is an overview of the whole Ihya, with the fact that we are all teachers. I'm going back to this, right? All of us are teachers just by the way we act, Yes, as I said, if you see some trash in the street and you pick it up, someone thinks, oh, I should do that. I should pick up trash. Sometimes I see paper cups that somebody threw and I just walk right past it. I could pick it up and I could be a good example. And Ghazali compares it to two trees. He said, a straight tree casts a straight shadow and a crooked tree casts a crooked shadow. You see, this tree, by the way, is out in my front yard. Out in the morning, I see it when I go for the paper. Look at the shadow, right? So we want what we do is the shadow we cast, right? We want it to be straight and beautiful and correct because it inspires other people and people will then try to copy us. So that is the end of the now I'm going to go off. I'm going to do this all by myself. Let me go up here. I'm going to stop share. Here we are back. So we've had an overview of the Book of Knowledge today. And we're going to go into some of the points in great detail. I have a class of kids I teach from Dubai and London every other week. And today we just did we do two chapters at a time, but with you all, maybe we can do more. And we definitely want to get to purification and prayer. Those are fantastic. We need to get to the fasting and zakat. And then by the time in the spring or whenever summer, we'll do the Hajj book together, which is fabulous. It like sums up everything you're learning. And what your parents are making possible for you is to give you these incredible tools. You're being given a toolkit now so that you can use this toolkit to do the most important thing in your entire life. There's nothing more important. There's nothing more important then your golden heart in being true to who you are, and being who you really are, and not just believing that you're your story. We've all got a package. Bosnia, Turkey, Kentucky, a package, family, likes, dislikes, and we're out there defending our package, right? But that is not the real you. The real you is your pure golden heart. So I'm looking forward to taking this journey with all of you. And I know we've gone past time, and I know the kids would like to go do something else right now, but we'll meet next Sunday, and we will begin our journey together. And I just want to give you all of my salams, and peace and blessings be upon you.